Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide, and I'll jump to the paper performance portion of this. I'm personally opposed to this. This particular proposal probably affects me more personally than the others, and I'll explain to you why in a few minutes, but I'm opposed to it for three basic reasons. Number one, this proposal is so complicated. I have yet to find out anyone who truly understands every aspect of it. I went to the post-legislative tour, and Mr. Luna and the staff of the State Department of Education did, and I asked them about the paper performance plan and how this formula worked. It was obvious that they didn't know how it worked either. And the reason why? Go ahead and go to the next slide. On the state website, there is a number of pages that explain how paper performance is calculated. You have to be a PhD in mathematics to understand this. And I know that that is very, very difficult to read. So let me just see if I can read just one sentence. Quantile regression is used to estimate the conditional density associated with the student's 2011 ISAT scale score. A linear combination of B-spline 7 cubic polynomial functions are used as a conditional quantile function to accommodate nonlinear heterodidacity and skewness of the distribution. That's only one sentence. A paper performance plan is supposed to be something that a teacher understands so they know what they're supposed to do to get it. I don't think anyone understands this except for maybe the guy who wrote it. And maybe he doesn't understand it. Okay? So I sat down with some people and I said, okay, how is this really going to work? I talked to other teachers, I talked to principals, I said, what? And I talked to the superintendent. And I said, how is the paper performance plan going to work? Go to the next slide, because this is how it's really going to work. The state of Idaho, and I don't want to get too complicated, but the state of Idaho sends money to school districts for the salaries of their teachers. It's called salary-based apportionment. That money goes to the school districts then use that money to pay their teachers. What the paper performance plan does is it takes a portion of that money that used to be going to the school districts and they pull a portion of that away and they hold it back. So the school district has less money to spend on teacher salaries. And then at the end of the year, they take that money and they distribute it to some of the schools. Now I want you to hear that. Some of the schools. Everything I've heard about pay performance says that it's supposed to be going to the teachers. It's supposed to be a measure of how well the teacher is doing. But that's not true, ladies and gentlemen. It's not going to the teachers, it's going to the schools. Okay? Now, I want you to get this last thing. You have to understand that the amount of money going to the school districts for the salary is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller every year because the percent that the state is holding back for the paper performance is increasing every year. So some teachers are going to see their salaries either stagnate at best or regress at worst. Okay? So let's go to this next slide because I want you to realize how unfair this is for some members of our teaching community. This proposal doesn't take into account the differences in students from one district to another, from one school to another. And that means that if I am a teacher at Century High School in Pocatello who have a number of students who have college professors as parents, who have gone to college, they understand the educational system, they can help their kids with homework, and if I'm a teacher there, I'm going to have a distinct advantage over someone who might be teaching in Jerome, where they don't have a college, where they have a huge population of English as a second language students whose parents have never not even graduated from high school, no less college, who cannot help their students at all with their homework. How is that possibly fair? How can we compare the students in Jerome to the students in Pocatello? Yet this performance plan doesn't take that into consideration at all. None at all. Then, another thing that has completely been ignored by the people who are proposing this is that there are many grade levels and there are many subject areas that are not tested. So if I'm a high school teacher who teaches history, or music, or physical education, or government, my students are not tested. If you are a teacher of government at a high school, you are teaching 12th graders. And I want to just let you think about this, because you know this person. Holly Karchner is a government teacher at Blackfoot High School. You could argue that Holly Karchner is the best government teacher in the state. And you could argue that because she has a class that has won the state championship in the We the People competition for 5 years in a row. But I want you to understand how Holly Karchner's bonuses is going to be, from this point on, will be determined. Her bonuses will be determined by the math, reading, and language arts scores of 10th graders at Blackfoot High School. That means Holly Karchner's performance as a teacher is going to be evaluated by students she has not taught. She won't teach for 2 years in a subject area she doesn't teach. How is that possibly measuring how she's doing in the classroom? It just doesn't make sense to me at all. And then finally, I want you to realize we can't control what happens in children's lives. The most important factor in determining how well a student does in education is their parents. There is no question about that. I cannot control the parents my students have. And there's nothing I can do about it, right? So let's go to the next slide. I want to talk about how the fact that paper performance doesn't seem to make any difference anyway in the student test scores. Now, when I went to that post-legislative tour, Mr. Luna passed out a piece of paper that explained why he wanted paper performance, and on it was a list of research that showed that paper performance worked. Well, I happened to be sitting at a table with another man who had a laptop computer with him. It had Wi-Fi. We ran a Wi-Fi hotspot. He opened it up. He looked up the first research paper that Mr. Luna has cited as support for his pay for performance plan. It was a study done by Vanderbilt University, by their Peabody College of Education. Do you know what it said on the first page of that research paper that Mr. Luna had used as support for his plan? That's what it said. It doesn't work. Now, why he cited this study, I do not know. But it was the first one that he had cited. I just read an article the other day about Nashville, Tennessee. They offered $15,000 in performance bonuses to middle school math teachers. Do you know what happened to their test scores? Nothing. They didn't go up and they didn't go down. So why are we wasting the money on that? New York City Public Schools has had a pay for performance plan for the last 3 years. They were spending $56 million on that program. They thought, oh wow, maybe we better see if it's working. So they hired the RAND Corporation. The RAND Corporation, which is not exactly a liberal think tank, they asked them to examine what was pay for performance doing to the test scores at that school, in that school district. Julia A. Marsh, she was the lead researcher of that, and she has summarized it in one sentence. We did not find any improvements at any grade level. Now, why are we expecting things to be different in Idaho? How are we going to change that? I think the same thing is true. Can you go to the next slide? I just want to share a couple of final thoughts about Prop 2 and the reason why it is so personal to me. Pay for performance, as I stated before, goes to schools, not teachers. I work in an alternative high school. I urge you to look at the state and find out what schools in this state are going to be getting bonuses this year. I guarantee you, Independence Alternative High School is not on that list. I can guarantee you that there is not a single alternative high school in this state that will be on that list. I have been Teacher of the Year in 2 separate school districts. My peers and my superiors think that I am an excellent teacher. But according to the state, every single teacher at Blackfoot High School is better than I am. I find that insulting. I have been doing this for 23 years. I know what I'm doing in the classroom. And to be told that I am a bad teacher because my kids aren't doing as well on a standardized test as an AP math teacher at the high school, it really bothers me. And that's why this is so personal to me. I want you to understand that what I am going to have to do if pay for performance goes through is I'm going to need to look for a job somewhere else. I am going to go to Pocatello and I am going to try really hard to get a job at Century because those kids always do well on standardized tests. And I know there I will get a bonus. And I guarantee you that every other alternative high school teacher I know is going to do the same thing. And what we are going to end up doing, ladies and gentlemen, is we are going to get teachers to flee the areas of our educational system where our students need us the most. You need to understand that teaching is not about a test. I had a student in my class a number of years ago whose parents were divorced. Her father was an alcoholic. Her mother didn't trust her because she had done some things wrong. And every single person in her life told her she was worthless. She walked into my class and I told her that she was great. I told her she could do anything she wanted to do, that she could accomplish anything. Well, she started getting good grades at our school. She started being successful at our school. And then 1 month she didn't show up. And I asked some of her friends, hey, what's happened? Where is she? Where is she? And her friends told me, Dan, it's really, really bad. She's made some really, really bad decisions and she's gotten heavily into methamphetamine use. I was heartbroken to hear that. A few weeks later, I'm leaving the school after everyone else is gone, and I'm walking out to my car in front of the school with my hands full of a bunch of junk that I have to do at home. I walk out and she is standing across the street from my high school. And she looked like a skeleton. Her eyes were sunken in, her hair was nasty, her face looked horrible. So I threw my stuff in my car and I walked over to her. And I said, how you doing? And she said, I'm not doing very good. And I said, come on, let's go get you help. And right then, some people jumped out of the house from behind her and said, hey, come on, come with me, come on. They yelled their name, come on. So she said, Dan, I have to go. And I said, promise me that you will come back and talk to me tomorrow. She said, okay, I will. Well, I didn't see her tomorrow. I didn't see her the next day. I didn't see her for months. And then at the end of the school year, I get a call from the office. Dan, it's the end of the day. Come down to the office. Come down to the office. So I walk out my door and I turn down the hallway and there she is standing in the hallway. And she looks like her old self. Beautiful young person. And I walk up to her and she gave me a hug and she said, Dan, I just want to tell you that you are the only reason I am alive. You were the only person in my life who ever believed in me. And when I ended up in rehab, you were the only person I thought about. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand something. That girl didn't pass the ISAT test. That girl didn't graduate from high school. She might be the most important accomplishment I've ever had as a teacher. And the state now wants to tell me that I'm a failure. That hurts my feelings.